Hello and welcome to Let's Talk, a series of podcasts produced by the Hazel and Betty Ford Foundation on the issues that matter to us and the issues that we know matter to you too. Substance use prevention, research, treatment of addiction, recovery management, advocacy, and education. I'm your host, William Moyers, and I'm here today to tell you that he is not Dr. Drew, but he is Drew Horowitz, an addiction and mental health consultant who specializes in clinical interventions.
That's correct.
Drew, thanks for joining us today on Let's Talk. What does it mean to be a clinical interventionist?
It's a good question. Essentially, my role as a clinical interventionist means two things. One is it means that I am educated, licensed, and trained in both addiction and mental health and overseen by the Board of Behavioral Health and Therapy in Minnesota. Two, it means that I have a strong understanding of what a family system looks like and how it acts and behaves when there's an active addict or alcoholic within that family system. And our training and experience allows us to come in, disrupt that system, and help the identified patient, being the addict or alcoholic, enter a treatment center.
In other words, you're doing interventions, as
Correct.
they used to call them.
I am doing them as they used to call them, but we're doing them much more strategically and measured and taken into a lot more factors and considerations.
But intervention used to come with, they had a connotation of a negative experience or a confrontation or where there would be outright anger and all those other things.
Absolutely. That's sort of the stigma I'm up against.
You have a stigma.
Yeah, very much so. And that is actually one of the biggest reasons, and probably jumping ahead, why people don't want to do it, because they have a misconception of what it is. Yeah. It's none of those things. It's not a confrontation. It's not a fight. It's not an argument. It's a family meeting facilitated by a professional who's educated and experienced in family systems and how it operates, with a specialized understanding of what it takes to help motivate someone to enter treatment. Using compassion, empathy, motivational interviewing, and other evidence-based models that help motivate people. It's none of the things you mentioned, William.
So at the end of the day, it is about motivating the person who is caught in the grips of the substance into recognizing they have a problem and then getting help. How
Correct.
do you do that?
Almost any person using a substance who they meet criteria for, a significant substance use disorder, they know internally that they have an addiction. So I don't really need to convince them so much that they have an addiction. I need to delicately help them understand that it's okay to get help for their addiction, and that this isn't a bad thing, that we are going to help you, we're going to honor you, and we're going to validate you, and we're going to do it by appealing to their better nature and helping find that person inside that really exists, that's being essentially, suffocated by the addiction. There's a good person in there. And part of the family meeting with myself there is to help bring on what we call a moment of clarity. We create it. Why wait for them to go near the brinks of death to see it when we can help artificially create it and open a window of opportunity? And that's what I do. I help create that window of opportunity and pull them through.
And you oftentimes utilize the family to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, they don't know me, so it's not about me. It's about me teaching and coaching the family how to strategically utilize certain things that they could use and say, and potentially help me find a way to motivate them. Absolutely. It's not about me. I am the director, but I'm certainly not the agent of change as part of this process.
Talking about agent of change, there's oftentimes it's said that if the person doesn't want to change, they can't be compelled to go to treatment. That until somebody wants it, why bother?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak, to that very well, and speak personally to that.
Please.
When I was 26 years old, living in New York City, active in a cocaine addiction, I didn't want it, but I knew I needed it. My family helped get me there. Hazel and Betty Ford helped me realize that I needed it. So to get to treatment, you don't have to want it. You just have to go. What happens there is magic. It's where treatment happens. It's where clarity happens. It's where your body heals and you start to feel good. Then you develop a motivation to want it. So there's a misconception. You don't have to go to treatment. You don't have to wait till the person is surrendered and willing and wants it. You don't need that. A person needs to go to treatment just a little bit of willingness. Once they're in treatment, that's where the recovery happens. That's where the brain opens up. That's where the clarity happens. That's where there's good clinicians that understand motivational interviewing and know how to motivate someone towards an acceptance action stage of change. So I would say, William, that is an outdated concept around substance use disorder and mental illness, that someone has to want it in order to do it. There's very little evidence that suggests that. I do believe that that's the case if they're going to have ongoing and long-term sobriety. To some degree, they do have to want it.
They got to be part of the solution.
They got to be part of the solution.
Yeah.
But the beginning stage to take that initial step from point A to point B, the community to treatment, I see at least 100 people myself a year take that step with me that I'm pretty sure don't really, quote, want it. But they certainly understand that it's something they need to do.
So they take that step and
Correct.
off they go to the treatment experience they're going to have, whether it's at Hazel and Betty Ford or somewhere else in the
Correct.
community. They leave behind a lot of wreckage, a lot of damage, a lot of emotional raw wounds because the family is there. So your job is not done when the addict and the alcoholic, the focus is off in treatment. You have other things to do.
Correct. The storm has stopped, for sure. The addict alcoholic, the identified patient, is receiving life-saving care. Absolutely. The storm has stopped, but there is significant wreckage that needs rebuilding. And that's recovery. It's family recovery. It's a family system. If the family recovers, research has shown that it's more likely that the individual is going to recover. Their recovery is actually partially contingent upon the family getting care, because both individual and the family need to proceed towards recovery. So my job now becomes, how do I support the family in keeping up with the identified patient who just got care? So yeah, there comes a lot of work post-intervention. That's a great first step, but a lot of work to follow. For sure.
What about, do you do work with families once the afflicted person who has come back from treatment? Do they come back to see you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a lot of families. We've gotten to know them on a seriously intimate level. We've been in their home. I've seen them cry. I've heard words that they haven't ever used before. I get to know them on a level that most people outside their family haven't seen. I'm privy to information very few people know about them and their family. So there's an immediate connection. There's a level of trust that they have to put in me, and that just doesn't go away. You become a profound part of their family, and they really do depend on you and trust you and value you as a component of their family. They seek ongoing counsel, not just in the next 30, 40, 80 days, but years after I talk to families.
So family members need to recover
100%.
While their loved one is recovering, or even if their loved one doesn't recover, because it doesn't always work.
It doesn't, no. And people discharge treatment AMA
Against medical
medical advice.
Yeah.
People decline treatment and say they will do this without their family and figure out an alternative path. Here's what intervention is. Intervention is a process. It's not an event. And that's where a lot of confusion is. Everybody puts a lot of pressure on the day of the meeting with the identified patient who's the addict or alcoholic. They're either going or they're not, and that's going to determine everything. It's not. This is a process. Intervention is a process. People that don't go on the day of intervention almost always go to treatment within 7 to 21 days. Almost always. And that's just because the intervention process was very impactful. It was very hard. It was very crushing to the addiction, because the disease of addiction doesn't like that. And this just really derailed their plans. And so what happens is they eventually come full circle. We get a call and they're ready to go.
There'll be a lot of people who listen or view this podcast who are interventionists or maybe want to get into the field like you have as a consultant. But we know at the end of the day that a vast majority of the people who tune in to these Let's Talk podcasts are people who are really looking for help, either for themselves, for an employee, or for a family member. What should family members look for before they pick up the phone or send you or somebody like you an email?
The unfortunate reality is that I am the last call. Families believe that they should take all these other steps before they call me. They think the person needs to be arrested, they need to be hospitalized, they need to have lost their family. Now they can call me. It's the exact opposite. This is a preventative method. they should call me first. Let's preserve that individual of all that suffering. Let's preserve that family of all that financial loss. Why do we need to go down that road? Why do we need to have legal barriers and medical issues and cirrhosis of the liver? We don't need any of those. We can motivate a person to seek treatment prior to having those consequences, and outcomes are just as good. We should be the first call. A call or email doesn't cost any money. Our services start and we provide support because we like to help people. You know, there's a no-cost consultation. There's opportunity to get to know us. If an individual is struggling in a relationship because of their substance use, and they're not functioning at a level where they should be functioning, or they're not happy in their life as a result of a substance, it's appropriate to call us. Those are the reasons. They don't need to be arrested. They don't need to have a long list of prior treatments or hospitalizations. That's not really necessary. Those individuals have already gone significantly down the road. Call and learn. Intervention is not a punishment. We're not going to leverage a person to do something that makes the family fearful. We're not going to bully the family. We're here to help, and we do.
Point being that the family shouldn't wait for the loved one to hit bottom.
Absolutely not. I mean, let's save them and the family. Bottom is an old-fashioned term. There's no actual research or evidence that suggests they need to bottom out and be ready. People die every day from this illness. Where's their bottom? 6 feet under. So we don't want to risk a person's life. We want to take a model here that's evidence-based, that's strategic, that's done professionally and clinically, where we approach an individual and help them see an option of treatment. What they decide to do is going to be their decision, but it doesn't hurt to help direct them in the right place, and that's what we do.
Drew Horowitz, thank you for
Very welcome.
directing our listeners and our viewers to that right place through your expertise as a clinical interventionist based in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Appreciate your taking the time
Thank you very
today.
much.
And on behalf of our executive producer, Lisa Stengel, I'm your host, William Moyers. Thanks for tuning in for this Let's Talk podcast, and we hope to see you again.